It's a Friday, which means GT7 has given us a bunch of new weekly challenges to go ahead and complete. And once again, this week is all about the monetary gain, with a bunch of pretty easy and quick credits on offer for all players who take part in these 5 new events. So without further ado, let's head in and see what's available. So this is May week 1 and it will end on the 8th of May 2025 at midnight. As for event number 1, it's Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit for the European Sunday Cup 500. We then head over to Willow Springs International Raceway on the Big Willow for the pickup truck race. We then go to the special event for the week, which is the returning Aston Martin Vantage 1 make, of course one of the latest cars added to the game. That is at Blue Moon Bay Speedway in Field A. We then head over to the Nürburgring Nordschleife for the historic sports cars Masters, and then Fuji International Speedway for the WTC 800. As for your completion rewards, for one event it's 100k, 3 events is 200k, and all 5 will bag you 500,000 credits. So let's begin then with event number 1. This is the European Sunday Cup 500 at Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Of course, this is aimed at European cars only, around a 500 pp rating. Now of course there is no restriction in place, so you can go way over that, and there's also no drivetrain restriction, so it is open to pretty much any European car. My car of choice will be the 911 Turbo, which did the job just fine. So let's get into the event then. There are a total of 8 cars on the grid over a 2-lap sprint race. Now as always for my events, I'll be as close to any PP recommendation as possible and running on the hardest difficulty, and honestly this was a fairly easy race overall. The only car that gave me a little bit of an issue was the A45 AMG from 2013. That is certainly the standout car that I had featured on the grid here. Everything else, well, they really weren't an issue, and we even saw a little bit of carnage kicking off during this 2-lap race. As for the rest of the grid though, honestly you'll probably breeze past them and then have to get down a decent gap to the A45. As you can see, I made my way down the inside and went on to get a fairly decent lead in the end by around about 2 seconds as we crossed the line and got the first event done and dusted. That is tick number 1 for the week. Let's move over to the payouts and rewards. So it's 15,000 credits for this one. Again, because this is a relatively low day 1 event, unfortunately the payouts for this is pretty bad, and that is with the 50% bonus as well, but we do get 100k to top us up. Okay, so let's move in to the second event of the week then. This is the pickup truck race over at Willow Springs International Raceway on the Big Willow layout. Now of course this is just for pickup trucks only, and there's only 2 of them in GT7. The first is the Raptor and the second is the Tundra, so pick your personal preference and just go for it. As for me, I went for the Toyota Tundra as I do genuinely really like this vehicle, and I do have a few slight upgrades on it. However, a completely standard pickup truck can pretty much battle and win in this event no problem whatsoever. So as for the total grid, there is a total of 12 vehicles, 11 AI over a 3-lap race. Now as for the majority of the AI, they do have liveries and look like they kind of have upgrades on them, but honestly they are completely standard under the hood. You should be able to breeze this one no problem. And one thing that I did notice is that the AI just genuinely struggles to drive these pickup trucks, so just take advantage of that. Keep it clean and you should go on to take a relatively easy win. Honestly, this was perhaps the easiest event of the week in terms of actually taking that victory, and I think most people will probably agree on that. 3 laps overall does seem, I guess, pretty lenient in terms of a, total amount of laps to get through this grid. So really, you should be getting this one no problem whatsoever. Anyway, as for my event, as you can see, we're on lap 2 here. We're already up to P2, and then we're just going to make a lunge down the inside of P1 to take that lead and then go on to build up our gap for the remaining lap. After that, we'll then go up to the finish line and cross it with over a 7-second lead. So overall, a nice, relatively stress-free event. That is going to give us our second tick of the week, and of course for this one there will be no extra prize. But what about the payout? Once again, a relatively early day 1 event means that we're going to get a relatively low payout of 45,000 credits, and once again that does include the 50% clean race bonus. Up next is the third event of the week, and this is the special event for this week. It's the returning Aston Martin Vantage 1 meet, this time at Blue Moon Bay Speedway on the Infield A layout. As for the event itself, I'm going to be using a completely stock and standard Aston Martin Vantage, and it was able to do the job with relative ease. So it's a total of 5 laps, 12 cars on the grid. Of course, the specified car is the Vantage. First place is 60k, 36k and then 24k. Your main rival cars are of course made up of a different bunch of tuned and ready Vantage. So as for the restrictions, BOP is off, it must be a garage car and car settings are allowed. There's no damage and of course both penalty settings are set to off for a race this short. So of course the car I'm using is the Aston Martin Vantage, and as mentioned it is completely standard other than the livery. So here we go, 12 cars total, 11 AI up ahead over a 5-lap sprint race, and honestly this was very easy. I don't know if it's just the track layout itself. I think even the most unconfident driver here, considering there's really not too much in terms of low speed corners other than one single section, will probably be able to go on and really easily win this one. I took the lead down just constantly. By the end of lap 2 I had the leader down to 5 seconds and I was just constantly flying past the AI. It's almost like they're just not confident to put the power down on the straight, as we made short work of them. Now on to the third and final lap, it will be a rinse and repeat situation. The final corner, we're going to get a decent exit, take the lead and then never look back again. This gave us pretty much 2 laps of just cruising around, building up our lead and then going up across the line to take a very easy victory. Overall in the end it was just over 6 seconds, almost 7, as we crossed the finish line to take our 3rd tick of the week, and of course we do get an extra reward on top of it. As for the payout then, we took 90,000 credits, of course with that 50% clean race bonus, and we get 200,000 credits on top. So the 4th event of the week is the historic Sports Car Masters. This is over at the Nürburgring Nordschleife and might just be my personal favourite sprint race in the entirety of GT7. There's a PP limit in place of 580 and I believe your car needs to be pre-1989. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but I'm pretty sure that's the cutoff. My car of choice was the Toyota Levin. This is highly tuned, naturally aspirated and incredibly lightweight, putting out 211 brake horsepower. However, it is made for the more tight and technical sections of the Nordschleife. So for the first time this week we're seeing a much bigger grid made up of 16 total vehicles, 15 AI up ahead over this 1-lap sprint. Now I believe that weather is completely off here, however it will be pretty grey and dull for the entirety of this race. Now I'm going to admit it here, honestly it's just not that challenging. The most challenging part of this event is getting a car to 580 pp which you're comfortable driving. Apart from that, the AI are honestly just not that good. There's a couple of cars you need to watch out for, usually that is the Moira and the Countachs. Apart from that, honestly the rest of these cars are almost completely useless, and that's just because the AI just cannot drive them. They typically struggle all the time with the corners, and since the Nordschleife is very long, very tight and very technical, they'll mess up a lot, meaning that that gap will probably plummet down incredibly quick. Like I said though, it's mainly just the Lamborghinis you need to watch out for, because once they hit that main straight they're incredibly quick. Luckily for me I built up a decent enough lead that I was able to fend them off and take a gap to over 10 seconds come the finish line. That's tick number 4 of the week. But what about the payout? Well, it's relatively low, 60,000 credits. For some reason I didn't get the clean race bonus and I'm not sure why, but we do get our daily of a 4-star. Moving on then to the 5th and final event of the week. This is Fuji International Speedway with the WTC 800, of course limited to 800 pp cars. However, it is completely open, so it's your personal choice what you want to use. However, the type of vehicles you're up against are mainly going to be Group 3 vehicles. Now as for my car of choice, I went for the Nissan GTR from 2018 with this Super Take-You livery. As for my strategy then, it was a bit of a weird one. I believe this event is fully randomised weather, and well, it started off with incredibly wet conditions for the opening few laps. Now I went ahead and started on the intermediates, so I knew it would be extremely tricky and I'd be extremely slow to begin with. I went for a fuel mix 6, and of course as the wet cars went ahead and pitted for intermediates, I'd make my positions up from there, and that worked incredibly well, giving me a lead as I went into my pit stop. Now at this point I pitted in at the end of lap 8 going on to lap 9 because it had gone from intermediates to full dry conditions, and of course the cars behind me still had to make their pit stops to do the exact same, as of course their tyres would be shredding off. I would then add a little bit of extra fuel so that I could run run Fuel Mix 1 for the rest of this event. Of course, I'd be on the racing softs as well, as we only had a couple of laps remaining, and well, that's how we'd go ahead and work it. And once again, as people were messing up and all over the place as their intermediates completely failed on them, and as the rest of the grid decided to pit in, I would then move myself back into P1. And at that point, we just had to survive one more lap on the dry line, and well, that would be it. And that's exactly what we did. In the end, we managed to take a relatively decent lead after pushing it out to upwards of 12 plus seconds. As you can see, none of the other cars stood a chance. For me, this was just kind of a strategy masterclass. So P1, final reward of the week, 210k with the claim race bonus for the event, and of course 500k on top. Speaking of rewards, let's head over and go and open them up. So first of all, we have our daily driving, which is a 4-star ticket. And as you can see, we could have got incredibly lucky here. 100k, 500k, and even 1,000,000 credits. But of course not. We're going to end up with 10,000 credits on this one. Absolutely gutted. I would have loved those extra credits there. So 10,000 credits it is for my daily marathon wheel ticket. Now in terms of the rest of them, it's 100,000 credits for one event completed. For 3 events completed, it is 200k, which is just going to give us that little extra boost towards 61 million. And as we open up 500,000 credits, it's going to take us over the 61 million barrier, and there we go. Anyway, that is the new weekly challenge for GT7. I found myself really enjoying these ones. They were short, they were sweet, and they were to the point, allowing a bunch of different strategy in that final race as well. Massive thank you to all of my channel members on the screen now. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.